Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's Ronsley. It's so good to have you here on this live recording. I am in awe of the kinds of conversations I get to have, not only live, but also before getting to a point where I can do these live. Today, I have a special guest in the house who I have followed for a long time. I have looked up to her from the sidelines, I suppose, until recently when we met and we got a chance to exchange notes. But she has been doing webinars and podcasting since 2007, which is insane. When people call me the podcast guy, I feel very under not enough reps as someone like the legend that is Suzi Dafnis. She's been doing this for 27 years. I'm so excited to have her on the show and chat with her about her story and the stuff that she's learned, not only for herself, but also for others. Suzi, welcome. Nice to have you.
Hey, great to be here.
So good to have you. This is amazing. I feel like I've been looking forward to this conversation for years now. So let's get straight into it. I want to ask you the principles or the values, like what does Suzi Dafnis believe in that we should kind of know about at the start. These are Suzi's views on business and entrepreneurship. Let's start there.
Just a little question to start with. Um, so, knowledge is my biggest value. Knowledge is my biggest value. And as someone who I actually left home just before I did my high school certificate at 17 something and thought I had this incredible career ahead of me, finding myself in a place where I kind of had to for myself and create an income. A few years later, I found myself in my own business, and not from having gone to the best university, but from having really dived into investing in myself and my education. And that's why I love what you do. It's all about learning and growing and implementing. What I really believe about business is that you can go to so many personal development events, but owning your own business is the biggest is the biggest personal development transformation that you will ever have. And the learning never stops, as you would know, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think I don't know whether I've heard that phrase from you, but I've used that phrase before when, like every time you think that, or I think I get to a point where I'm like, oh, I'm cruising in business. And it's like, oh, there's this new thing to learn and this new thing to grow. And it's almost like the business only grows if you're willing as a business owner to grow first.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. What was your journey into that, and how do you see resistance coming up when people get to that point?
In the first few years of business, like a lot of people, I was just like hustling to just bring together an income. I didn't have a viable business model. I didn't really know who my ideal client was. I just knew that I wanted to create some income. And so my background had been in marketing. I'd worked for Virgin and a couple of other positions for a little while. And so I started just offering my services, so exchanging time for money. Going from that exchanging time for money model into actually a viable business model took about 2 or 3 years. And it took like a lots of trying things and realizing, oh, the more clients I get, the less time I have. I can't charge more than that. I'm out of time. And you find yourself bouncing around. But creating a viable business model was a priority. And that really means really identifying who you're for and who you're not for, who your ideal client is, and what the business actually looks like. And actually taking it from being like a hobby to actually wearing the CEO hat and saying, okay, this is something that needs to grow. And if I keep trying to fly solo, if I keep winging it, it's just not going to work in the long term.
Yeah.
And so all the breakthroughs that I've had in my business have come back to, like you said, facing the resistance. Where is the resistance? Is it in building a team? Is it in taking on a mentor? Is it in joining a mastermind? Is it in joining a business network? Like, where is the resistance? Isn't to giving money to that social media platform to run my ads, noticing where those resistances are and just making sure that everything we're doing is supporting our growth and our goals.
Yeah.
And I just want to kind of back up a bit. People talk about vision all the time. And what I've found is that really knowing the direction you want to take and what you want life to look like, because business is just a vehicle for us having the lives that we love. So we have to be really clear about what a good life looks like, what a successful business looks like. It's such a personal thing. And for me, what success looks like now at my age with my experience is very different to what success looked like when I was just starting out and I was just trying to hit that first six-figure mark.
And I think that's a really important point you bring up, because I feel like our definitions of success changes with the experience we have, depending on where we're at and what kind of people we have, I suppose, around us, and what kind of perspectives they help us with, I suppose, like, because it's
Yeah.
like someone else's perspective that really helps us shift. Let's talk about the resistance, because that's something that comes up a lot in just in general. I mean, and you love talking
Mm.
about this idea of showing up. What?
Yes. I love that topic because it's a tough one, right?
Yeah.
We want to grow our business at arm's length. We like to think, oh, if I just put up a great website, if I just post a few times on social media or a lot of times on social media, someone's going to find that buy button and cha-ching, the money's going to be in the bank. And it usually doesn't work like that. And showing up, there is a resistance to showing up. Showing up, we'd rather be on the couch watching Netflix with the dog, that. But for us, we need to show up, when showing up means, and just yesterday, I have a group of 100 women that I'm coaching all this week. And we were talking about showing up, and we were talking about the challenges of showing up consistently. Like, you show up consistently for your audience, Ronsley. That's why you have such a powerful following. That's why you get results. But showing up can be difficult. Showing up consistently can be difficult. Showing up, knowing where to show up or what to say when we get there, that all causes resistance. And this idea of we're here and we want to go there, there's always going to be a little bit of a gap. But what we want to do is we want to put ourselves in that slightly uncomfortable position to show up, because it does get easier over time. So showing up could be anything from, saying yes to that invitation to be here speaking with you. Showing up can be making sure that when I go to your website and you're a solopreneur or a micropreneur, I see your face. I don't see some stock image. When you're posting, you're showing up regularly. When you have a newsletter, you send it out consistently so that your ideal clients see you show up in their inbox. Showing up is also about putting together your offers. So for the longest time, and before I met you, I used to run webinars. So I've run webinars since 2007. And every month I would invite a successful author or entrepreneur or speaker onto the show. And we would do this great free webinar. And at the end of the webinar, I would say, so I was showing up. At the end, I'd go, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Go ahead and buy Seth Godin's book or whoever it was at the time. I'll see you next month. Not once did I say, and by the way, if you enjoyed this, I've got a library of 300 different trainings that are designed specifically for small business owners who want to grow and scale a business. All you need to do is, and here's the link. I didn't speak up and make my offer. So I was showing up, but only half-hearted, because I wasn't letting people know that there were ways that they can work more closely with me, that I had things that would benefit them, that they could get more access to me and my coaching and more one-on-one support, if only they would come over the line and invest in themselves in a different way.
Oh wow! I mean, I love that we're going here. I'm picking up everything you're putting down, as always, Susie, with all your wisdom. Like, love having these conversations. You speak about this idea of showing up, and I love the examples you gave as well, because it's so on point. And I feel, and I think we're all guilty in some way of not showing up, or showing up half-assed, really.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that part where you said that we don't know what to say, and who cares, and like what happens then. So I think that sort of comes to mind a lot, like the psychology behind what do I even say, and how do I
Yes.
show up, and like, does anyone care of what I have to say, or does
Right.
anyone care of the offer that I put in front of them? Does anyone care if I write the book or put out the podcast? So how do we deal with that
I
sort of
love
resistance?
that. I love that. So one of the things that can happen is that we show up. Say you show up and you're invited to be a guest on a show like this, or you show up at a networking event, or you show up on a Facebook Live, or you're somewhere and someone says, "Hey, so what do you do?" Right, which is a very normal question in Western world. What do you do? And you find yourself rambling or fumbling or leaving the conversation going, "Gosh, I could have done a better job of that." And one of the things that we're not doing is we're not showing up with some very clear things. One, being clear on our ideal client. And we're not for everyone. We're for very specific people. You are for podcasters. I am for women who want a 6 or 7 figure business. That is who I'm for. And not only showing up, but knowing the ideal client, but really knowing the ideal client, having done the work to understand their pain points. Because when we're trying to speak to everyone, we speak to nobody. Knowing what the pain point or problem is that that person is having, that's why they're going to care. Because when you can speak to someone and you can demonstrate that you understand their pain point or problem, they're also going to assume that you know how to fix that pain point or problem. And then you also want to be showing up ready to make your offer. Who's going to care? The person that you have identified that you can help the most, because you understand their pain point or problem and you've crafted a product or service that fits that. What we often do is we create this great product or service and then we go, okay, now I need clients.
Yeah.
But when we start with the ideal client in mind and we heed this advice, excuse me, I'm going to grab a book from here.
In real
Where is
time.
it? Yeah. Okay, where's it gone? Oh, it's right down the bottom. Excuse me while I
I actually
my
saw
mic.
that.
Anyway.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me grab this. This is.
I saw that book. I caught that book. Actually, caught my eye
Did you?
at the
It caught your
start,
eye.
and it's funny that you've weaved it into the show. So yeah,
So this is Seth Godin's most recent marketing book. I gave a copy. I have purchased and given away literally 450 copies of this,
wow.
if not more. And the reason is in here, he says, you want to be able to say, I made this for you, but not for you. So you want to be that clear that you want to be the person for a specific person. Because if you want to grow a 6 and 7 figure business and you're trying to be all things to all people, it's really hard. If you're trying to offer all the products and services, and if you've got this laundry list, but the moment, and this is where the big shift was for me, the moment I got clear on, I wasn't for any woman who worked. I was for women who wanted to grow a 6 or 7 figure business.
Yeah.
I didn't want to offer all the things. I wanted to have a podcast. I wanted to do webinars. I wanted to have a retreat in Hawaii. I wanted to have a mastermind. I wanted to have a membership. Like that, just getting really, really narrow. But it starts with what he talks about in here, which is you start with the ideal client and then you build the business from there, not the other way around. It's really hard when you decide, you know what, I've got this, I'm going to do a 5-part course on how to do this or that. Is there a market for it?
Yeah.
They're not going to care.
Yeah. Well, I learned that the hard way, right? I mean, my first business was a restaurant. I opened the restaurant,
Oh, right.
opened the doors. I was already like 250 grand down because of all the fit out and everything else that had to be paid before I even made my first $10. And I didn't even find out whether, the market wanted what I had to sell, whether I had to educate the market, which I obviously had to. There's all these learning curves that we kind of get into business not knowing. And it feels like the most simplest thing is to get help. But for some reason, we don't do that. Do you know why that is? Like, why is it that we're resistant to getting help?
I think that's interesting because it took me a couple of years of fumbling around before I finally reached out and I had someone help me do a business plan. I think it's because especially if we've been successful in another area of our lives and now we're running a business, we feel like that we should know how to do that. We don't want to look stupid. We don't want to be criticized. We don't want to appear. We don't want our family to know that we really are taking a big risk and we don't know. And yet for me, reaching out and asking for support and saying, I don't know how to do that. Does anyone know how to do that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to develop a new website. Does anyone know how to make this thing work or that platform? Seeking mentors and support and people around me is the way that I've grown 5-7 figure businesses. It's not from figuring out that I can do it on my own. I know I'm not the smartest person in the room. I know what I'm good at, and I know there's a lot of things I'm not good at, but there's a lot of other people who are good at those things. But I do think it's that fear of looking stupid or looking like we don't know enough. I can tell you, I do not know enough. I know what I know, and there's a whole lot more that I don't know than I do know. And 27 years in, I know a whole lot more than I did, but markets change, technology changes, marketing changes, your ideal client might change, how you want to show up and where you want to show up, and things change. And so success, I like to say this, success in business isn't just what you're doing, it's also who you're being. And so you've got to figure out, who do I want to be in business? What is going to be authentically me? What is going to be the message that I'm going to stand for? Who am I going to champion? Who am I going to be for? Because when we can get really clear on why we do what we do, then we can get into action. I remember being at a conference in Austin. There's a wonderful conference that I went to for 10 years in a row before the pandemic, and it was a marketing and new media conference. And many years ago, just when I'd started my blog, I was in the bloggers lounge. They had a special room for bloggers. And a woman came up and said, I'm interviewing business owners about why they do what they do. And would you like to be interviewed? I went, I'm sure, no worries. And when we sat knee to knee with chairs opposite each other, and she had a notebook and she said to me, why do you do what you do? And I said, oh, I have an events company because I really enjoy events and learning environments and putting together that sort of thing for people. And she said, okay, great. And then she said to me, so I'm just going to ask you again, why do you do what you do? And I said, I really love people to come together for the purpose of knowledge and creating communities. And I, went blah, blah, blah. And she came back and she asked me again. I'm like, can she not hear me? And she asked me again, and she asked me again, and she asked me again, till suddenly we kind of got to the nub of it. And with tears in my eyes, she gave me a piece of paper and she said, just write down what you're thinking. And it was one of those big oversized Post-it notes. And I held it up and it said, I want people to be free. Now, who did I really want to be free?
You.
Me. I wanted to be free. I wanted to be financially free. I wanted to never have to clock in anywhere or answer to anybody. I wanted financial freedom so that I could be with whom I want, when I want, anytime I want. I want the freedom to grow the type of business I wanted. So when I got really clear that I wanted people to be free, that who I be in business is someone who supports women business owners to become free themselves, free from the glass ceiling, free from the limitations on their salaries, free from thinking they have to do business a particular way. If they want to work 3 days a week and spend the rest of their time with their kids, great. If they want to work 3 days a week and the other do just go to the gym, great. It's really about, I kind of got off track a little
No,
bit,
you did
but
not.
it
You,
is.
you're literally on track because
I'm on
when
the track. Okay, good.
you're on track, you're on track. So I've got a dear friend of mine. His name is Philip McKern, and I talk about him a lot because he's written this really great book. And in that book, one of the quotes goes, "Our greatest gifts like lie next to our deepest wounds." And I think just what to your point, right? I mean, your greatest gift about you wanting to be free lies next to the wound that you're trying to heal, and it's a constant like, and that's why it's easy for someone like that because the empathy is so high. I feel like, especially for your market and your target market, I keep saying that I believe mothers are the original entrepreneurs. I believe that mothers need to become whoever they need to become, the hug giver, the chef, the driver, the whatever, to make sure that this piece of value goes out into the world, and or this person goes out in the world and is of value. And business is no different. We are the graphics designer, the everything, the pep talk giver, the marketer, to figure out how this thing can be of value and it doesn't sort of fizzle and die. I love how you talk about niching. How deep do we have to go into niching? And you're going to cover a lot of this on this really great free training that you're doing next week. There's going to be a link, ladies and gentlemen, in the comments below, so make sure you check that out. You're going to cover a lot of this stuff that we're talking about here, like how to actually get
Yeah.
these things done. Can you talk a little bit about that training and how that came about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the program is called The Road to Six and Seven Figures, and it talks about my journey going from having a six-figure business to growing my first seven-figure business. And it talks about how do we go from feeling like we're throwing spaghetti against the wall when it comes to and hoping something's going to stick. To having a really clear focus of where to put our energy. It's that transition of working in the business all the time to really becoming the CEO of your business. It's moving out of having to be the decision maker for every single decision to being able to step into the role that is rightly yours as a business owner. So I'm really talking to people who want to grow a six or a seven-figure business. And I told the story about a transition point. I'd been in business for a number of years and we were doing about $300,000 and we had a small team of people. They weren't all full-time. They were friends and family and anyone who would come and work for us, and we were working out of our home. And while the business was growing and we'd finally felt like we'd cracked it as far as the business model that was going to be viable, we were just getting burnt out. And so my PJ partner and I took a long weekend away to a place called Hymes Beach in New South Wales, and we rented a little blue house that still exists there now. It's a little cottage, and over that weekend, we started to really debrief what we've been doing for the last few years because time just passes, Rosalind, you
Yeah.
know that,
Yeah.
right? And suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? And we're running so fast, we don't stop to say, am I actually running in the direction where I want to
Yeah.
go?
Yeah.
And so that weekend we started to question what we were doing, how we were doing it, and was the team we wanted? Did they have the roles? Were our roles satisfying us? About the products and services we were delivering? Were they fun? Were they killing us? Were they profitable? And we just had flip chart paper and post-it notes and time. That was the main thing. We had time to sit and deconstruct the business. And so we started, once we could get really present to where we started to then envision the future. And there's a beautiful white sand beach just across from the cottage. And we'd been for a long walk and I'd found some driftwood.
Mm.
And in the sand, I wrote the number 1 million.
Mm.
1 0 0 0 0 0 0. And it was the first time that I had kind of out loud voiced what I really wanted.
Yeah.
And I wanted $1 million business.
Yeah.
Why? I wanted it because I knew that to go from 300,000 to a million, I would need to think differently.
Mm-hmm.
I would need to be a different person. Need different team roles in the business. I would need to be doing something different in the business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Our marketing would have to up level. Our mentoring and who was around us would have to up level.
Mm-hmm.
For us to finally hit our financial goals,
Yeah.
we'd have to be doing something different.
Yeah.
For us to have an abundance of time for the important things and not just busy and overworked and overwhelmed, things would have to shift.
Yeah.
And so in the program on Monday, which is called The Road to a 6 and 7 Figure Business, I'm giving people the same process, the same blueprint that I've used that day to go from $300,000 to just months later having $1 million business. But I've used it time and time again to now grow 5, 7-figure businesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very excited to do that because we spend a lot of time and a lot of years in our business. So how do we do it so that we're thinking bigger? How do you play a bigger game? What are those key traits
Yep.
that successful business owners know about?
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite things to do. It's knowledge I really share, and it's information I usually only keep to people inside of our Her Business network.
Yeah.
But on Monday, I'm making this available. And it is normally $97, but if you go there now, you can get a free ticket. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm excited to do that.
And that link is going to be down in the comments, so make sure you get that link. And also, you're on the database and you get my emails every Tuesday and Friday, sometimes Saturday these days. So there will be a link to that. So go check that out. You spoke about these 6 things which you're going to cover, which I'm super excited to like dive deep into and check out the webinar and be on the training. But there's one in particular that you spoke about that I want to kind of like maybe touch on a little bit, which is how do you think differently when you have a business that's at 300,000 and you want to make the jump to not only a million, but after that, like what do you need to do to start thinking differently, and what's that process like, and what kind of reps maybe that we need to get in the way to kind of think differently?
It's hard, right? Because you're inside your head. So one of the things that always served me is putting myself in the road of opportunity to see how are other people thinking. Because I'm sure when Richard Branson of Virgin thinks about a business, he doesn't think about it the same way as I do.
Yeah.
I'm certain that way, right? Otherwise, I would have created what he's created.
Yeah.
So it starts with surrounding yourself with people who think differently. It starts by questioning our assumptions. If I was to have any business model, what would it be? If I was to approach team in a different way, how might I think about that? If I could create any sort of product or service, what might that be? So thinking, it's kind of like you have to get inside your head and notice when you're thinking things, because we have these upper limits to our thinking. Oh, I can only earn that much, or I can't actually earn more than my husband or my wife or my brother or my parents, right? We have these upper limit thinking. There's, again, another great book that I've given some of our members, which talks about this idea that we have to start to notice our thinking, because they are just thoughts and we can change them at a moment's notice. So on Monday, we'll look into what are some of these things that we believe. Are they around income? Are they around size? Is it about how visible you can be? Is it about how famous you can be?
Yeah.
Is it about how much you can stand out? Is it, do you feel like, I think, well, there's already 10 other naturopaths in my suburb. I surely can't stand apart.
Mm.
Noticing when you are actually closing in on yourself with that thinking. And we'll do a couple of processes, and I'll give you those on Monday, where you can start to notice some of these things,
Yeah.
because we're sort of trapped inside our own head. But the moment we start to go, oh, that's a thought, that's an interesting thought. Do I really believe that? Is that my thought, or is that something I've adopted from family, community, faith?
Mm.
And
Mm.
actually starting to question that. But one of the best ways to check your thinking is to have people around you who hold you accountable. That's why I belong to a mastermind. That's why I run a mastermind. That's why, we have like a
Yeah.
messenger group that we're a part of, right?
Yep.
Where we can go, oh,
Yep.
let me just check my thinking on this.
Yeah, it's so
Mm.
important. Like I said it when we were talking at the start of this conversation, we were talking about how important that perspective is when other people are around you. And I feel like, podcasting kind of lets me do that as well in a very interesting fashion, because I feel like I share for this time, I'm sharing your frequencies. Like I'm kind of like, we're kind of like vibrating at different frequencies, and then quite come together, and then there's this like shared elevation. I feel, and I get to then vibrate at that different frequency going forward.
That's great.
I'm
It's
very woo woo.
enriching,
It,
right?
it
Yeah.
absolutely right, and I
Yeah.
feel like being part of a mastermind allows you to do that as
Yeah.
well. When did you first come across masterminding, and when did you realize the potential that being in the group has, and
Yeah.
and maybe also to add on to that, what are like key points that are different about your masterminds?
So my first experience of masterminding was with two women I met through my organization. They were members. We just got on really well, and we started to meet every Tuesday morning. And we did this for about 2 years at one of their offices. And every single month we had our projections, our goals, and we held each other accountable. But we really brought to the party contacts, references, resources, support for each other. So that was my first one. My second one was five of us. I mentioned my blog earlier. So we were voted Australia's #1 business blog a number of years back. How did we get there? We really dove deep into showing up on the blog. Um, but the point was, I got together with 4 other bloggers, and for 5 years, we met every single month.
Mm,
And we talked about blogging trends and topics and reach and getting more eyeballs and SEO and just supporting each other to grow our blogging businesses.
yeah.
But a few years ago, probably 5 years ago now, I made the biggest investment that I've ever made. And I've had informal masterminds for all my years, really. The moment I started masterminding, my business really changed, because I wasn't winging it. I wasn't in isolation.
Mm,
I was actually around other entrepreneurs. But 5 years ago, I made a big investment to join a mastermind that's out of the North America.
yep.
And so there's not only the 5-figure
Mm,
tuition
yeah.
fee, there's also the planes and the hotels. And I like to stay in nice hotels. I
Yeah.
like to fly at the pointy end of the
Yeah.
plane.
Yeah.
It becomes very, very
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
But here's what's happened is a lot has changed. My thinking has changed. I'm challenged. I have, like you, I'm getting to these frequencies
Yeah.
with people who are playing a bigger game than me in one area, but then I have experience in another area. And when those minds come together, that is masterminding.
Mm,
Masterminding is not a mentor and a mentoree. It's not a teacher and a student.
mm,
It is the coming together of these minds. And so 7 years ago, I started the Her Business Marketing Success Mastermind, which I run with a friend of ours,
yeah.
Michelle Falzon.
Yeah.
And we brought it together because we could see people were doing courses of ours and running different programs. But then we'd have to say, okay, bye, good luck now. And
Mhm.
we thought, we could really help these women more if they would just stay with us longer and could get that ongoing support from us, but also each other.
Yeah.
So we started with 11 masterminders, and just 2 weekends ago, we were in Noosa with our current cohort. And these are women who might have been doing $150,000 who are now knocking on the door of 2 million. These are women who couldn't get 3 people in a course who now get 30 and 40. These are women who weren't able to fill events with 6 or 7 people who now have 120 members in their membership. So the growth with a mastermind happens not just because there's great leaders at the helm, and I think Michelle and I do a great job of leading the Marketing Success Mastermind, but it's also that everybody is part of the masterminding. Everybody brings their experience, their resources, their contacts. And so when you make a connection, I mean, these women are doing collaborations together.
Yeah.
We've really gone off topic,
No.
but this is a great conversation.
No.
Because supporting yourself, really investing in yourself, is putting yourself in the way of opportunities.
Yeah, I mean,
If you're invited to be in a mastermind, say yes, put the money down, invest in yourself. That is all I can say.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I think that, so when there's a great quote about the five being the average of the five people you hang around with, right? And I think if you continuously do that, you level up in different areas. Like you level up in relationships, you level up in health, you level up in business, you level up in thinking, and you level up in
Yes.
freedom, in the kind of things that you do and the kind of things that you experience. And I'm a huge fan of Mastermind, so I love that you broke that down. I believe, like you, it's the collective wisdom of being around a bunch of people. Let's talk about running webinars since 2007. I think one of the things that does frighten people a little bit is how does these webinars work, and what's the I think we get in our way a lot, right? And we talked about who cares, what should I even say, how do I put this together?
Yeah.
How do we since doing this for so many years, how do we as business owners, this is for me, this is Ronsley's therapy session, what kind of advice do you have for someone like me who's kind of like, I would like to run webinars more frequently, but how should I think about it? How should I think about it differently?
With anything in a business, it has to have a purpose. Like whether it's a webinar or an online challenge or a mastermind or a course or whatever, you want it to have a place and a reason for being. And so for many, many years, I ran free webinars every single month. And as I mentioned earlier, they were great for lead generation, but they didn't lead to sales because they weren't designed to have sales. Next week, I'm running a webinar on Monday. I'm going to provide loads of value, and then I'm going to let people know how they can work closely with me. And so a webinar is no different to any other way that people get to know, like, and trust you, where you can show your expertise and your authority. And you want to have a purpose. If the purpose is lead generation, then great. If the purpose is conversion, then that's going to be a different type of webinar. And so how you want to think about it is you don't want to think about it as one more thing to do. I'm always around, how do I reduce the friction? So for me to do a webinar, I can do them with my eyes closed. I remember we were doing webinars and people would call and say, where do I park? And I'm like, you're parking your butt right where you are. That's where you're parking because it's a webinar. But that's how long ago it was. And then the pandemic came and suddenly everyone's like, Zoom, yes, of course, Zoom. But for a long time, it was very, very different. And so maybe you need a webinar, maybe you don't. So if you have a low-cost offer that goes in, let me give you an example. So one of the things that we've offered since 1998 is mentoring. So the way that you come into our mentoring program, we don't go out and promote mentoring. We have an ebook that is about the number one way that successful women business owners get and stay successful. And when you download that ebook, you'll find that the number one way is that Richard Branson says it, Oprah says it, Sheryl Sandberg says it, is to have a mentor. So we reveal what the thing is. Then we say, we've got a free webinar all about how to find your ideal mentor. And so people go and do the webinar, and then they get to the end of it. We've given them how to find the ideal mentor, what to ask the mentor, what they should look for in a mentor. And at the end we say, and if it's too hard for you to find one, we've been matching people with mentors for 20-something years. Let us do it. So it has a very clear place in where, but like Monday, I'm running a webinar because it's the easiest way for me to get to as many people as possible to tell them about our road to 6 and 7-figure growth plan and how it works.
Yeah.
But don't feel like you need to do them. If podcasting is your thing, then podcasting is your thing. It just depends what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And it also comes down to what we spoke about at the start, like the showing up piece, because it's another way to show up and show up better and show up differently and show up to help, as opposed to like looking good, because that's, I think, why most people don't do it, is like, oh, what will other people say if I am too salesy? What will people say
Yeah,
if I
interesting.
right? So I think it's, let's talk about that, because I think that is probably the number one thing that gets in the way of us not offering anything, when it
Yeah,
comes
we
to
don't
our
want
service.
to look salesy. So great. So we don't make sales. So I remember the first time I did a webinar where I went to make an offer and I had to switch from giving value and educating to actually making the offer. And it was like I turned into a robot. My voice changed, my demeanor changed. I felt really uncomfortable. So I had to go and learn how to do that, right? I had to go and learn, well, how do you construct a successful webinar? So I saw mentorship and a system and a process and a script. And now I've gotten better and better. I kind of have it down more. So the first time we do something, but if you don't want to appear salesy, then you want to look at your messaging. You want to, like, I have so much conviction when I say to women, join the Her Business Network if you want to grow and scale your business. If 18 months from now you want to have transformed your business, then join the Her Business Network, because all day, every day, that's what we're helping people do. I can say that with conviction. I don't feel salesy. I don't feel pushy. If they don't do it, one, they may not have the money. Two, they may not have the mindset. Three, they may not be willing to invest in themselves. Then that's fine, because there is no scarcity.
Yeah,
There is
yeah,
no scarcity. There are a lot of people for whom it is the right thing. And that's why we've helped tens of thousands of women over the years. Um, and I know when I started my first business, I wouldn't even pick up the phone in case someone wanted to buy something. So I would let it go to voicemail. And then at the end of the day, I would check the messages. And if I could palm the inquiry off to my partner, PJ, who had a sales background, then he would do it.
yeah,
It took a while for me to be willing to show up.
yeah,
But when you have a really clear purpose, when you have a clear reason for why you're doing it, when you're really clear who you're doing it for, when you are prepared because you've done the training, you have the system, you have the knowledge, you've done the practice, and then you finally take action, you'll have a little win. Then that'll give you a little more confidence and a little win. Yesterday, in this program I'm currently running, I challenged the women to show up in various places and I gave them a whole suite of things that they could do. One of them was going to an event and she used the show up strategy that I gave her to show up, and suddenly she got a whole bunch of new leads. Another one set up her newsletter in LinkedIn and got 156 new subscriptions, right? So it's getting the mentoring, like it's making yourself available so that Ronsley can help you with your podcast. It's about showing up in my community if you want to grow a 6 and 7 figure business and you're a woman business owner.
yeah,
And so we get more comfortable the more we know someone's got our back, someone really cares. But if you don't make your offers, people cannot buy. They're not going to suddenly go down the corridor, 3 doors to the left and find the buy button. It's just not going to happen. So get clear on the value that you offer and learn. I had to learn how to make an offer.
yeah, yeah,
It didn't just come naturally. I'm not a natural salesperson. In fact, one of my mentors, I worked for many, many years with a man named Robert Kiyosaki. He's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he used to say to me, Susie, you know your problem? You're not money driven. You're mission driven. And what he meant was, because he's very money driven and always has been and very open about that, is that for me, it was more about making an impact and a difference. But once I knew that about myself, then I went, okay, great. I just need to continue to make an impact and a difference. And I still need to sell, obviously,
and the money will
but
show.
I knew who I was. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When you look back at all the people that you've helped, how does it make you feel? What is the first thing that popped
I
in your
feel
head?
great. The first thing, I just had pictures come to mind. I had pictures of women's faces come to mind, like Chantel, who has a business who they install solar and air conditioning. They have vans on the road in a town in Victoria. When she came to us, she was doing about 150,000. Now she's knocking on the door of a $3 million business. When Fiona came to us, she was struggling to get 6 and 8 people to sign up for her styling workshop. On Monday, she just let 122 people, 123 people into her course. She now has 3 staff. I've seen this progress over the years. Or Amy Lee, who's got 2 little girls, but has a wait list of clients ready to do business with her because she knows how to show up. She knows how to talk about her business. She's very good at lifting others up in our community, and so they go to her. Or Karen, who has 95% of her business is from referrals because inside of our community, she's known, liked, and trusted.
Mm.
And so here's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about our ability to not only get women together, but also to have a plan for them and a system for them and a process for them
Yeah.
to be able to identify their ideal client, put
Mm.
together and package and price and name their offers, be willing to make their offers,
Yeah. Yeah.
choosing what marketing is going to work and what, you mentioned webinars aren't for everyone, podcasts aren't for
Mm.
everyone. I'm sorry to say,
Mm.
but they're not, right? Some
Mhm.
people should not be podcasting. It's just one more bright shiny object that's moving them away from them. The best thing for them might be to cold call a few key people. That
Yeah.
might be their best strategy.
Mm.
And so knowing who you serve, what you sell, the pain or problem you solve, and how you actually want to grow your business is so important, because there's no point building in resistance because you're trying to do a marketing that you see someone else do, that for you is so painful, when you probably should have a different strategy because you have a high ticket offer or you have a long sales cycle.
Mm.
So yeah, it's more complex, obviously,
Yeah.
but our specialty is in supporting people to grow the business, their ideal business, not the business that they think they should have,
Yeah.
but the business that's ideal for the life that they want to have.
Yeah, I mean, we do this a lot, right? We stand on this mountain of value and experience that we've created, look at someone else's mountain and go, I want that, get off our mountain
Yeah,
all the way down
yeah.
and climb that one
I love
from
that.
scratch, right? But there's also this really cool quote that I've started to use a lot is that, amateurs waste energy on the mundane tasks and don't have the energy for the most critical one, while pros and the professionals conserve their energy through the mundane one so they have the energy to take the critical one more accurately. And what you're really giving all your people is all this experience of being the professional rather than them running around in circles and trying to figure it out. You can just do that for
Yeah.
them, right?
Well, and when they come to us, they're usually in that. They're spinning, they're overwhelmed, they're burnt out. There's too many bright, shiny objects. They don't have the clarity and focus. And when you can give someone clarity and focus, and this is just for you as well, if you're watching, and for you, you give clarity and focus to people who have a marriage breakdown, or people who are writing a book, or people who are trying to lose weight. When you can give them clarity and focus, and you can show them that you have a pathway for them, that you're going to hold their hand along the way, that working closer with you is going to get them to their result faster, people will naturally come to you. They will naturally pay the dollars because it gets too painful being on the other side of that.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you're tying this into impact, because I think a lot of us today are more impact driven in the sense that we want to make this difference, but we don't want to sell along the way because, oh my God, we're selling our soul, right? And it's not doing anyone service necessarily, including ourselves. I feel like you've got something to say about that and how we've kind of maybe changed that narrative.
Just give that to me again. I just want to make sure I pinpoint the point that you're wanting me
Yeah,
to.
like
Yeah.
the idea that we don't sell, like, so we want to make this impact, but we don't want to sell. And how do we show up that we, okay, switch this around
I love it.
for us?
I love it. Okay, so let me give you an example.
Yeah.
When people say, I want to help people become the best version of themselves, I just want to slap them around the face. And I'm not condoning violence. What I'm saying is, get specific.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Yes, we're all light and fairy dust and we want to make an impact, but what does that mean? What does you doing what you do make possible for your ideal client? And so if we want to make an impact, then who is that impact for? Being really clear. Is it to my pocketbook? Is it to my family? Is it to my faith? Is it to my community? Is it to my ideal client? And so, but mainly, maybe the impact you want to make is, I want to be able to buy that car. I want to be able to take the family on vacation. I want to pay for my kids' tuition. I want to be able to retire by the time, like PJ and I, my partner PJ, we've been, at the end of next month, we've been together 30 years.
Wow.
Our key focus was to be financially free by the time he was 40. And so how we were going to get there, part of it is the story of the little blue house, which I'll go more into on Monday's session. But part of it was having that really clear vision, and also being really clear that we wanted to help as many people as possible to grow successful businesses, to become financially free, because we knew that that impact will also impact us. And so if you want to make a business that helps people, you also want to be helping yourself. And you can help more people if you know who the more people are. Again, my mentor used to say, If you think you're going to help just anyone who can fog a mirror, meaning anyone who's alive, then you're going, I know it's funny, right? It's too broad. Who do you want to help specifically? Women is too broad. Students is too broad. Athletes is too broad. Business owners is too broad. And so, where is the impact that you want to make? Because the clearer you can be about what that impact is, that it's going to inform the social media images you use, whether you're on webinars or podcasts or live events, what sort of strategic alliances you do. So, the impact we make has to also impact us. Because if we're burning ourselves out, if we're spinning too many plates on the end of sticks, you can get that visual, right? You spin a plate and then you go and you spin the next one, you spin the next one, and you're just chasing your tail. The impact is going to be that you're going to be burnt out.
Yeah.
That's the impact. And so for us to make the most impact, it has to start with us and investing in ourselves, surrounding ourselves with the right mentors, giving ourselves that investment of knowledge, getting into the right groups, industry associations, communities, mentoring relationships, masterminds, whatever those things are. These are my values. Other people are going to do it differently, but for me, it starts with who I'm surrounding myself with. It is who I'm being. It is how I'm thinking. It is how I'm showing up or not showing up. It is about when I feel like I don't want to show up, that I'm around people who are like, okay, get back on it. I notice you haven't published a podcast episode in 3 weeks. Get back on it. It's about surrounding yourself with people. When Facebook locks down your Facebook account and you're running ads for a big promotion, that you have people who go, that's okay, come and be on my show with me. That might have happened recently.
I think I'm so glad to have done this. Thank you for the time, and I'm so glad to have put this together and had the conversation with you. Ladies and gentlemen, herbusiness.com is where you go. You don't even need my link. Like, just go to the website and register for the training. I have registered for the training. Because I just find everything you're doing so fascinating in the way you storytell, in the way you put this whole thing together. And even though you're doing this training around 6 and 7 figure business owners, your whole copy is around this little blue house. This whole story is around this little blue house. How did you, what gave you that idea, and how did you shift that thinking to creating a story around this?
It's really been with the coaching and mentorship of a good friend of mine who Michelle Falzon. So we run a podcast together, we run our mastermind together. And I remember telling her, and she loves story and she loves telling stories. And I remember us sitting around and I was telling her this story about the little blue house. And she said, that is a really, really good story. You should really tell that story more. And I'm like, who wants to know about the little blue house? But it was the meaning behind the meaning. And each of us has these stories. They're turning points in our business. Like for me, it was like going from 6 to 7 figures. For you, there is something that's in your story that your ideal client is going to relate to. And so how can you unearth that? How can you put it into words? Do you need to get a copywriter to help you make it sound better? But knowing that you do have stories, and they're often less around us big noting ourselves and more about the story that your ideal customer is going to go, I want that. Or I understand that. I had that same experience. And so I've got, a few stories that I do share mostly because they come up and they're like, okay, this is the story that's relevant. For that person. But for me, it's always just about what value can I bring that has me look more relatable, and not for people to know that not only do I see their pain and know the struggle that they're having or the challenge or their aspiration or their big dream, but I also have a pathway because I've done it and I've done it and I've done it and I've helped tens of thousands of women do the same thing.
And once you have the pathway, it becomes so easy. I was doing a training for our members this morning and I was telling them, like, this is the pathway to get on 100 podcasts. Like in 100 days.
I want that train.
You don't have to think. You don't have to think. You just have to all the thinking is done for you. All the templates are done for you. Literally have to execute, right? And it's just like someone who's never run before and wants to run a marathon. They're not gonna just start running, 21 Ks or 42 Ks. 42 Ks, 21 miles, I think it's 42 Ks. So they're going to start with a training plan. And that's why the training plan is so downloaded, is because it's a training plan. And that's what you're giving people, which is so valuable. For everyone tuning in and watching this, whether it's live or on the recording, where can people find you? I know you got a Facebook group. I know you do podcasts. Where is the best place for people to connect with you and find your work?
Yeah, well, if you want to come to the training on Monday, head over to roadtobiggerbusiness.com. That'll take you right to that information page, roadtobiggerbusiness.com. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook. We have a free community for women business owners, and you can also follow us at Her Business on Instagram. We haven't been on Instagram that long, but we are starting to do more and more there.
Yeah,
But our free group has got almost 5,000 women in it. So if you want to
yeah.
network, if you want to connect with other women business owners, just look for the Her Business free community for women business owners. And I'll give you the link if you don't have it. And just
Amazing.
connect with me.
Amazing. We'll have all those links in there. Um, Susie, thank you so much. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Love
It's been
sharing.
great chatting with you. It's great
Likewise.
that we got to meet in person, and that we're able to do this. And yeah, happy to support your community any way that I can.
Obviously, I mean, you're such a huge, I'm such a huge fan of what you do and how you do it and for how long you've been doing it and the amount of reps you've put into this. So thank you for sharing that, not only with me, but everyone in my community. So I appreciate you so
Thank you.
much. Talk soon.
Thank you.